Our first speaker this morning is Senator Chris McDaniel. Senator McDaniel is the chairman for the Senate Appropriations and Revenue Committee and represents the 23rd District. He has worked with CPA for a long time. He is a great senator. We're glad to have him here this morning. So welcome, Senator. Thanks for being here. Just want to hear from you what your priorities are, what A&R is working on this session. I know you're dealing with a fun budget, so just want an update from you on all that.
Yeah, well, thanks, Shelby. I appreciate it, and thank you to all of you for being on today, and the things that you guys do as a profession to keep people like me who run businesses on the right side of the law. Sincerely appreciate it. So the session is a unique one because we're engaging in a task that the General Assembly's never undertaken before, which is to write a one-year budget. I can tell you that when we left last time, we were greatly concerned about the nature of the economy, about the nature of public health, because clearly last March, none of us knew where this was going to end up. The death rate forecasts, the infection rates, on and on and on, really were something that scared us, and justifiably so. As things have turned out, the problem, while the virus itself ends up being very widespread, the worst effects tend to be very acute in terms of the population that it affects. And so consequently, reopening to some extent has begun, and clearly vaccinations have begun to be administered, and so far appear to be going fairly well, other than the constraints internal to the supply chain of the vaccine. So we have some optimism right now, and it's reflected in the Commonwealth's receipts numbers, which are well above what we had forecast, and I'm hoping that will hold. Inside of writing the state's budget, we are pushing for a very conservative approach to it, rather than believing that the recovery will continue at full steam. We think we ought to be very, very, very cautious. And hope that happens, prepare for the case in which it does not. So you won't see a whole lot of changes from the way last year's budget looked in terms of raw dollars that are actually expended, but it still will not be insignificant. And also the other unknown still is as the third round of CARES Act funding begins to work its way out, how will that play out in the economy as a whole? There's a lot of direct aid from the feds into state government, particularly in education. I believe we expect to see about $1 billion alone flushed through the Kentucky Department of Education and out into the respective districts. And so there will be a lot of money put into play as we go forward. I know the one issue that I think you guys are most interested in is the deductibility of expenses for the PPP loans, and I can assure you that both on my public and private side, I'm interested in that. It is very much on the radar screen to conform with the federal tax code in that regard. And my ultimate anticipation is that we probably will do that, or something very, very close to it. I always hesitate to say this is exactly what we're going to do, only because I'm one member of 138, and ultimately bills have to get through this chamber and the governor's office before ultimately they become law. I know you guys deal in certainty, and a lot of times we deal in ambiguity here. I try to give you the best answers I can, but my answer would be, as it relates to that issue, I really would anticipate us trying to conform as closely as possible to the federal tax code in the decisions that have been made there. Outside of that, you will see us touch on a revenue bill again, because no budget can go without a revenue bill, and that's where you see some of your tax measures come through. I don't anticipate a whole lot of changes from the bill that was passed last year. There might be a few here and there, but they won't be very big. And that's really about it on that front. As I tell my colleagues all the time, I believe that people that watch the General Assembly and the general public as a whole, they really want three things out of us this session. They want to take the masks off their face. They want to get a shot in their arm, and they want to get their kids in school. And that returns a lot of normalcy to society. Now, people will expand and say they want the restaurants open or this or that. And yes, those things are natural extensions of the three things I described there. But that's really what people want in Kentucky right now, and the things and the ideas to which we'll push. So that being said, Shelby, I ate through about 5 minutes of my time, and I thought, like I normally do with you guys, I just throw it open and see what questions different folks would have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, if you could please put them in the chat feature. I know something that we've been talking about within the society for the past couple months too has been the unemployment trust fund. Do you have any update on that or the deficit that was there, and how you guys and the governor are handling that? I know he has put some CARES money towards that, but any update on that front?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations still swirling around that, and then there's a lot to be unpackaged in that. There's still people from March who haven't received unemployment checks. There's still not an insignificant number of people who received checks and weren't entitled to them, and they should have never been sent, but they were, and now the administration's trying to work through clawbacks. We're working through it, as I've advocated before, trying to use some of this CARES Act funding to replenish that, and not force businesses unnecessarily into a higher bracket. Is a good utilization of that money. I think that you'll see some degree of that to happen. I don't know to what degree entirely as we work our way through this thing, but I do think you'll see some of that, yes.
Great, thank you. What is I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but I had another one on the budget, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what have you heard is kind of the time frame on passing the budget? I've heard some people say you guys want to get it out, quote unquote, early or as soon as possible. So what are you hearing there?
We still have to get into the actual free conference committee, generate the document, get it through its votes, et cetera. So I would say that it's going to take us at least 2 more weeks to have it out of here, is what my gut says. It might go a little sooner, it might be a little later, but 2 weeks plus or minus is what I think.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I know you have another meeting coming up. I'm going to give everyone another second if they would like to put a question in the chat. And if not, then we really appreciate your time. I know you have back-to-back meetings this morning and really worked us in, so we really appreciate that. You've always been a great friend to the society and open with working with us, and we appreciate that relationship and want to maintain that relationship. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And if we're not seeing a bunch of questions, one more comment I'll make particularly as it relates to businesses. I can remember when I was younger, my mom had a daycare center that she owned for about 15 years. And it was always a big deal when a daycare center would have an outbreak of something. And it invariably happened, right? Because kids are just little germ factories that pass it to one another. But you never wanted to be that daycare center that had whooping cough or, chicken pox or whatever the case was, that kids would just pass like little germ factories. And so to that end, a lot of the things that we have been doing related to the governor's executive orders and that we want to see happen are because of a general recognition. If you're a restaurant, you don't want to be the place that has a COVID outbreak, right? That's just bad business. And you're going to be, people aren't going to come just because they're going to be worried. Same thing for daycare centers. So we're trying to, at this point, there's enough understood about the virus, about its transmission, about on and on and on, that we should be more open as a society. And the secondary effects of people contracting it for employers are tremendous. Any of us who have been through this know that the operational effect of someone coming down with this, whether they have it and it really hits them hard or not, the fact is you can't bring them into work for a couple of weeks. And that's tremendous, especially for your small businesses who might have a key person who all of a sudden can't perform a function because you can't have them around others. And so a lot of what you will see and have seen from us is reflective of the idea of letting people put those reasonable precautions into place and get their places of business back up and running. And, trying to give that maximum flexibility to the ones who want to operate in a good manner, which is really 98% of folks, because not only do they have an internal compass that points them that way, but they have a financial motivation of not losing that business. So yeah. Oh man, I just saw that thing. I see Chad is disabled working on it. Well, we'll hang tight here for a second, see if maybe a question or two pops up. Unless you've got another speaker you need to get to, Shelby.
Oh, you're fine. Sorry, we are aware we're working on the chat being disabled. But no, I appreciate that. And that's something that we've heard from some of our firms is, we want to be in the office and we're going to do everything that we can in order to stay safe, because we don't want to be the firm or the business that, has COVID spread through it. So I know people are taking these precautions, and that's something that we've heard from some of our members as well. Let's see. Okay.
Correct,
So it said
Kathleen.
no talk of tax on services.
And Kathleen's correct. Yes. Shots then masks.
What about liability coverage, says Darlene?
Yeah, great question, right? So we got that out of committee yesterday. And it's kind of like, I'll tell you the same thing I told the committee. When this happened, a lot of businesses did exactly what I did. I'm not a huge business. I got 40 people, right? But we're expecting a company meeting on Monday. Well, on Sunday, there's new CDC guidance that comes down. This is back in March, right? And so a lot of businesses did the same thing that I did, right? You're going to the grocery store Sunday night, trying to grab as much Dawn as you can. I mean, literally, you're bringing the guys in, taking their water coolers, putting not for consumption on them anymore, buying packs of bottled water, because remember, construction stayed essential throughout. So these guys aren't eligible for the pandemic coverage and so on and so forth with unemployment. And because we stayed essential, we really had no contractual way to say, hey, we're not going to show up on these job sites, right? And so we all did the best that we could with the knowledge that we had. And a lot of times, I mean, literally, like I said yesterday, instead of going into my office and setting up chairs on a Sunday for the meeting that we're going to have on Monday, I had to figure out how to use iMovie to make a video to send to all of my people. And so you just really get into, you're doing your best, sometimes feeling your way in the dark, but knowing you have X obligations to meet to your people, to your customers, to your vendors. And so extending some protections for people who took those good faith efforts. And the bills that you see exclude certain legal terms. I see Representative McCoy on here. He'll be able to speak to those better. But in essence, unless you did something on purpose or deliberately overlooked something, I'm sure we all missed things in this. I'm sure I make mistakes. But I mean, we literally were out there sanitizing shovel handles and concrete floats and crazy stuff, right? So that's my small example. There's thousands of little business guys like me all over this state, and we ought to do something to kind of take care of it. So with that, Shelby, you were right. I do have to get into this next meeting ASAP. So thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it so very much. Thank you to the CPAs. You guys reach out to me on a regular basis. I appreciate what you do, and wish you the best of luck here.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. You do the same. Bye now.
Bye. Well, I see we have Representative McCoy on here. Representative Chad McCoy represents the 50th District and is the House Majority Whip. He also serves on the Licensing and Occupations Committee, which KYCPA works closely with. So he spoke at our CPA Day last year, and we're very happy to have you again this year, Representative. Happy to have you start wherever you would like, but I know we ended on the liability issue with Senator McDaniel. Would you like to expand on that any further?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me on here. I was literally in the parking lot thinking I was going to have to do this from the Zoom, but Senator McD kept talking. So I ran upstairs and I was hoping that he would just keep going until I got to my office. So it worked out great. You know, this summer we toured around, the leadership team toured around the state, and it didn't matter whether we were in Paducah or Pikeville. The reality was businesses were very worried about liability. And in Senate Bill 150 at the end of last session, we did a very quick down and dirty liability protection. But unfortunately, or fortunately, we got it in, but it will only be in effect during any executive order pandemic. So what we've tried to do now is come back and put something in statute. But I do want to point, and I will tell you, the House has already done it. House Bill 10, we got out of here the first week, and hopefully with the Senate bill, we can get some compromise there and get it done. The number one thing to remember, as crazy as this sounds, is there are no cases. Right now, there are literally zero. There are COVID-related cases that have to do with employment. There are COVID-related cases that have to do with people suing the governor over whether or not he had the power. But there is no retail business front that has any lawsuits going on at all. And I think it's certainly a fear, but probably, you know, and I'm that cheesy plaintiff's lawyer, right? I'm the guy that brings those cases. The reality is there's not going to be any way to prove causation with maybe 10 times the number of people testing positive actually having COVID. How can you ever say you caught COVID in a particular place? So I get the fear, but I also am willing to bet the fear is just that. It's a fear, and it's not going to be something that we ultimately end up worrying about. And I think we need to be careful. Everybody says the same things. Oh, well, if you're being reasonable and trying to follow the guidelines that existed on whatever day, then you shouldn't be held liable. I couldn't agree more. But sometimes the language that we get, I know the Senate's bill initially had immunity in it, and it had immunity for essential services. And again, at first blush, that may sound like a great idea, but I will tell you that truck drivers were deemed essential, and for good reason. But giving them immunity from car wrecks, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think from a societal standpoint, we're shifting some risk that maybe we didn't intend to shift, because that's not a COVID related sort of thing. So the long and the short of it is, we absolutely know it's critical. We want people to understand that we support business completely in that area. And that's why it was a top priority bill for us already.
Great. Well, thank you. I know that's something that we've been watching closely, originally at the federal level, hoping that something would get passed late last year.
Yeah.
And thankful that you guys are tackling it this session, because it is very important and something, as I said to Senator McDaniel, that a lot of our members have been concerned about, obviously, as have most businesses in the state. But outside of that, what are some top issues that you're dealing with this session? What's been the hardest part in this short session? I know there's probably a couple things dealing with the budget in only 30 days, but what are your top priorities?
Well, and obviously, for being in the House, we've got to do the budget. That's clearly the top priority. And I know Senator McD has already talked to you about that. I won't replow that ground. I think we're working through it. I was listening in for a while. I heard his time frame of a couple of weeks. I'm going to use that against him now. So I was glad to get that little nugget. We'll see if we can get done. A big issue that I'm hearing about, and you guys probably are too, is what are we going to do at state level taxation with PPP money coming in? And I will tell you, first of all, we recognize that that's an issue. And as I understand it, March 15th is business tax filing day, so not April 15th. So there is some impetus to get that one done. And normally, if there was ever such a normal year, that would be something that we would take care of, in the revenue bill. But I believe the revenue bill is probably not going to come out till the end of session. You guys know how it is. It's like filing a law brief or doing a paper for college. When do you turn it in? The day it's due. So I mean, I really think all of these bills will not be done until the last possible second, but we've got to take care of the PPP stuff now. So we've got a standalone bill that is being drafted on that. Actually, it's probably already been filed. I think Representative Flannery has it. And
Yes.
yeah, you'll see that get some attention and move.
Yes.
So that's an important one. You know, other things that are happening that are, I'm trying to think that would maybe impact you all. I just got out of L&O committee at 8 o'clock this morning, and we moved a direct ship cleanup bill that had some wholesale excise tax issues in it. So if anybody out there works in the 3-tier market, heads up, there might be some changes coming there, especially on right now. It's weird. Wholesalers collect an excise tax of 11%, but then they remit 10% back to the state. They keep 1%. And quite frankly, it's a lot of money that ought to be tax money. So we're trying to, you know, pinch our pennies there and see what we can do. I see somebody just threw up a chat about estimated time on the turnaround bill or on the standalone bill. Was that the question, Shelby?
Yes, and I actually testified on that bill yesterday in A&R, so
Okay, good.
headed to the House floor, but yeah, not sure if you have any other information on how quick you're hearing that might go.
Shelby, what number is it?
278.
We quite frankly, we may do that today. Don't hold me to that. I was looking to see if I had Rudy's list. If we don't do it today, we'll probably get it out before the end of the week. We get it. That's an important one. Did it need any tweaks, or was it relatively in good shape?
Well, we've heard a couple people have concerns and said that they might want to put a cap on the amount of expenses that are deductible. Our viewpoint would be anytime you diverge from federal, non-compliance goes way up, and it just would be simpler to just conform to federal like other states have done.
I will tell you, that will be the push from leadership. We just need to conform to federal. There's no need to be an outlier here on any of these kind of things.
Yeah, that's our thought, is don't make it any harder than it needs to be.
Exactly.
But we've really, a lot of our members have reached out about that, and we've been asking them to reach out to you all to try and get that moving with the tax deadline quickly approaching. But we appreciate you recognizing that and wanting to get that passed and move forward. So that's good.
Senator McGee hit a lot of the big things. You saw us the first week. We really pushing kind of the things that we'd been working on over the interim. Now we're down to more of the business side of it. It's unfortunately, we're already at day 14, so we're halfway done, and our schedule's so weird right now. And with COVID, yesterday we had a scare. We had some folks that we thought were going to have to quarantine and all this stuff. We're trying to move quickly, but also not do more than is necessary. Without you guys, for example, being able to be up here to lobby or to go door to door and talk to us, we get that the process is not what it really needs to be to make good legislation. So more than anything, reach out and tell your reps to stop filing bills. That's what we need to do. It's just kind of, let's each do one and go home. That's all we need.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. I have to ask, do you miss us up there? Do you like how quiet it is? I mean, we're not bothering you every day. So how's that feel?
Man, do I miss you guys? No.
I went up there to testify, and I was like, this is the quietest I have ever seen this building. It's almost eerie.
It really is eerie. No, I do miss it because it's, you got to get a thick skin, because everybody in the hallway either loves you or hates you, and most of them hate you. People don't come up to tell you you're doing great. They only come up to complain. But it does make it, it makes it exciting, if you believe that or not, because the hallway, there's a buzz or an energy there that is definitely missing right now. I noticed we had a committee meeting today, and normal opposition was not there, and it was kind of took the fun out of it.
Can't argue as much.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which you probably enjoy that, being an attorney. Right? You like the challenge. Well,
does anybody have any questions? Yeah, sorry, Shelby, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, that's all I was going to say was if anyone has any, we're coming to the end of our time, so if anyone has any other questions, to put them in the chat. I see our next speaker is on as well. But we really appreciate it, Representative McCoy. Thank you for being here today and for always taking the time to talk to us and listen to our suggestions. We really appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you all. And if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. It's no problem at all.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, let's see. I'm going to give Representative Reed a second to get his camera on. There he is. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Doing great. Thank you for being here. Representative Brandon Reed represents the 24th District, and he is the co-chair of the House Appropriations and Revenue Committee, which is the committee that myself and others testified in front of yesterday for House Bill 278. So thank you for being with us today, Representative Reed. I know you're extremely busy with everything going through A&R right now that you've got going on, but we appreciate you being here.
Yes, absolutely. How you all doing this morning?
Pretty good.
Good.
Sad we're not there with you in person, but also not a bad day to miss with it being so cold and sleet and snow.
Yeah, it makes it a little weird. It makes it a little weird up here when y'all not around. So
yeah. Well, don't have any specific questions yet. I'll be monitoring the chat, but just want to hear your perspective from being co-chair of Appropriations and Revenue, what you guys are working on with the budget. I know you heard a little bit what Representative McCoy was saying. Just curious on timeline and what's going on there.
yeah, the timeline is very fluid. It's working out really well. Talks and negotiations are coming along, so we're doing good. It's a weird year for the budget process just because it's a 30-day session. It's unprecedented, but we had to do it that way because of the COVID-19 scenario from last year. And I'm glad we did by doing the one-year budget last year. That really helped us out to show where we are, where we can go with the revenue and expenses that are coming into the Commonwealth of Kentucky, so we can gauge that better. So I'm really glad we did it this way. But with that, instead of a 60-day budget session that we're all used to, this year we only have to do a one-year budget, but it's within a 30-day session. So the premise behind that was to get those budget bills out quickly to start the process, so we get it to conference committee and joint leadership meetings, so we can have that ongoing conversation. A normal 60-day session, the governor presents his budget, and then the House has about 30 days to put our priorities on the budget, and we get over to the Senate, and they usually take about 2 weeks, and then we're left with about 15, maybe 10 days there at the end. And so that only leaves about 3 or 4 days for conference committee to get things fine-tuned. So with the 30-day session, our thought process was, because that one-year budget already went through that 60-day process last year, going off the premise of a continuation budget with a few minor tweaks and then some priority and policy issues with some one-time money, that already went through that process. So let's get to that conference committee and those joint leadership committee meetings as fast as possible, so we can kind of fine tune what we need to do for the rest of this fiscal year, the next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Want to bring up, I know someone mentioned it in the chat to Senator McDaniel, and this is something that KYCPA has been watching for several years. I know we had several conversations with Representative Rudy when he was chairman of A&R on the possibility of Kentucky extending the sales tax to professional services, which would include CPAs. Obviously, that's not something that we would want.
Right.
We did a study on that and kind of the fiscal impact that would have on Kentucky if they did tax a lot of these services due to our border cities and just revenue that we would lose because of that. But it comes up every year, and it's come up, I know, probably highly unlikely that it would happen this session, but in the years to come, depending on how Kentucky would recover from the pandemic, I've had a couple people reach out with just the concern that looking for revenue in the future, that might be considered. Have you ever, heard talks of that, or have any of your colleagues brought that up as something that they would want to pursue?
Be honest with you, you just mentioned it. That's the first time I've heard anything this session on that topic. I know that has been raised in the past. That's something that I personally am not really fond of myself. But it's a 30-day session. I don't think we really have time to dive into any of those tax tax issues this session. I'm more, and I know Chairman Petrie, we're more in tune of cutting expenses, looking at things that we can cut. Kentucky's doing pretty good. We have some revenue coming in, from the policies that we made in the last 4 years, which has put us in a really good position, for this year, particularly. We was wanting to do some things, Chairman Rudy, last year, and we was wanting to do some things with the budget in the House. Was wanting to do some things with the budget that we was really proud of going into last year's budget process. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, COVID hit, changed everything, changed the outlook, just put everything on hold. So hopefully, with the decision to do a 1-year budget last year, the decisions that we have to make, and then this year following up along that process, and can, basically do a continuation budget with a few minor tweaks here and there and some policy issues. Hopefully, when we come out of session, we're only 8 or 9 months away from the whole new budget, cycle. So it's right around the corner. And this is the interim coming up this summer that we naturally start having those conversations for the new biennium budget. So we're right there already. So we're kind of ahead of the game, if you want to look at it that way. We're not behind, we're ahead of the game. So I do know in the next 2 years, maybe we can do some things we want to do last year. We'll probably be able to do them this time. Then we'll have some more tax, that broad tax conversation across the board. I know there's there's task force reports that we need to look at. There's some things people want to do, move some things around, get us more to that consumption basis. That basis. That doesn't mean, I don't think it necessarily means more taxes on services, but I know you just mentioned, I know it's a worry for you all, but just to be honest, I haven't heard anything. And you mentioned it's the first time I've heard it since I've been up here since January. So.
Well, that's good news to me. That's
yeah, of course,
it's
hear. It's Frankfurt, so anything can happen. So
yes, I know, never say never, but
it's not on my radar, and I haven't been talking about it, and I haven't heard emails talk about it. So.
Okay, well, that's good, because we, there's a fine line with issues like that, and being proactive and making sure people know that we think it's a bad idea, and then putting ideas in people's heads. So we've had, talks in the past, but we, that's something that we're always monitoring. So just wanted to ask about that. That's good to hear. Wanted to ask about the gas tax. I know I've heard kind of, it might happen, it's not going to happen, back and forth on that this session. I know it's been something that's been a topic for the last couple years. What are you hearing about that?
Not really hearing much other than, it's a 30-day session. So the vote threshold goes up on a 30-day session. So you'd have to have 23 votes over in the Senate, 60 votes over in the House. I think that's a pretty large haul right now. And again, along with what I just said about tax conversations, being in a COVID scenario, having that tax conversation right now probably ain't the best time to have it. But, 8 months down the road, next year begins a new cycle. That threshold goes down, both in the House and the Senate. And I'm sure that conversation will continue. I will say that, we could probably do some things along the way, in the budget itself to maybe free up some money in certain areas to relieve some stress, to make that conversation a little bit more pliable when we do have that conversation. But, I be honest with you, I've been more involved in the executive budget process, trying to get it fine tuned. I really haven't seen anything on the radar, having any conversations myself on that. But I just know that the vote threshold makes it a little bit difficult for this session. But again, we're not even halfway through yet, and anything can happen.
That's very true. Well, thank you. Wanted to touch base, and I know we talked about it with the first two speakers as well, but with the House Bill 278 that we passed in A&R yesterday, do you have any more insight on how quickly that might go to the House floor? And I know we got almost all yes votes in committee, but have you heard much pushback from your other colleagues on wanting to change that bill a lot?
I haven't heard anything. I know there's some technical avenues with that bill. I can see that topic. That was a topic that Chairman Petrie and I discussed early in the year, and we already had that kind of in one of the revenue bills. There will be a couple of revenue bills that we'll have out there to do what we need to do. So either that bill moves forward or the topic of that bill will be placed in a revenue bill. But that's more of a question for the floor leader, Rudy. Once it gets past our committee and all that process, we hand that off to leadership and Leader Rudy to make those decisions on when bills are moved.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm all for it. In fact, I didn't know there was opposition to it until there was some testimony yesterday, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I'm working on a letter to kind of just challenge a couple things that she said in opposition that I'm going to circulate as well. But just
But
obviously curious. But
that's something we've been hearing from our constituents back in late summer, early fall, leading up to the session, and as something Chairman Petrie and I, once he got named Petrie and I got reappointed to vice chair, that's something that we talked about early in the process. So that was something already on our radar, and just from our constituents. And then so it was more of a part of a global conversation with Commonwealth of Kentucky. So I think the majority of everybody here is for that. We just got to make sure the language is good and we get it through as fast as possible for that March 15th scenario for you all.
yes, and we appreciate that. And our tax committee has worked with Representative Flannery on making sure the language is, as clear and concise as possible in order to resolve the issue. And a lot of those changes were reflected in the House committee sub that was adopted yesterday. But just want to reiterate, as I'm sure you know, and just for our members, that this is an issue, like you said, that we've been talking about for months, but isn't just coming from CPAs. It's coming from the chamber, the Small Business Caucus. I mean, if you saw the committee meeting yesterday, there were 4 or 5 of us up there and a couple on Zoom ready to testify in support of the bill. So it does have a lot of support, which is great, but something that we're still trying to make sure all representatives know is really important. So we appreciate your leadership on that, you and Chairman Petrie on that issue, and for working with us on that.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
Well, is there any other questions in the chat? I don't think anything specific. We're rounding out the end of our time here. Thank you so much, Representative Reed. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
No, thank you all for what you all do. I know it's fixing to be a busy time for you all coming up in the next few months. Appreciate your all's service to the Commonwealth and what you all bring to the table as far as expertise for us. It helps us out tremendously. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. We appreciate it.
All right. You'll have a good one.
You too. Okay, we are up to our last presenters. We've got Commissioner Tom Miller with the Kentucky Department of Revenue here. And then I believe we also have Jessica Honican, Richard Dobson, and Gary Morris. All of you are familiar with them. They very nicely talk at most of our events, and we are so thankful to have them attend and speak and engage with us. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. I will let you guys kick it off.
Well, Shelby, I'll kick it off, and I appreciate you inviting us to join you again, and Russ and John. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time, so John Cooper used to teach me a long time ago that I could probably speak for 15 or 30 minutes without saying anything. So what I'm going to do, instead of giving any kind of update like I did last year, I'd prefer to let the experts that have a little more substance that they'll be able to share with you, and you'll probably want to ask them some questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you and turn it over to Richard and let Richard just kind of kick it off. And again, I appreciate you all allowing us the opportunity to be here.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner and Shelby and everyone. It's good to see you virtually today. And it seemed like a long time since this time last year. I wanted to just mention a few things from a sales and excise tax standpoint. And there's some questions, of course, always about online transactions and how receipts are going. The January receipts figures have not been published yet by the state budget office, so you'll be hearing about that soon. But through January anyway, or through December receipts, we're still up, in performing much better than was originally forecast. And that's been a lot of the discussion, of course, in the General Assembly in regard to the budget. But just from the standpoint of sales and use taxes, through December anyway, we're up around 6% for the year, so above, of course, the forecast. And one of the things that's been driving that is our online transactions. Yes, with the COVID restrictions, a lot of businesses are suffering, of course, particularly retail segments. So that's not anything taking away from that, but one thing that's kind of offset from a receipt standpoint, some of those depressed businesses and the normal sales tax that would be coming in is with online transactions. Of course, that's helped businesses. In many cases, they're still able to make sales and deliveries and so forth. So some have been able to pivot and some have not been able to do so. But just for our January numbers, looking at our marketplace providers and our remote retailers, and this is all as a result of the Wayfair decision and the early work that Kentucky's been involved in many other states regarding streamlined sales tax. But just for January, we had the highest receipt total thus far. And this is from marketplace retailers and the remote retailers. So we had $30.2 million in sales tax collections just in 1 month. And of course, we're coming just out of the holiday season, and the January receipts reflect December sales. One thing this year, Cyber Monday sales last year were included in the January receipts, but Cyber Monday sales this year were included in the December receipts, so the calendar. So we just thought because of the calendar, we would be up against a little bit of a headwind, so to speak, because Cyber Monday was reflected, had already been in, and so it would be depressed for this year. But that's not the case as far as receipts overall. So again, over $30 million in collections from receipts just for the January receipts. And online holiday sales, 45% increase, a 45% increase. Online sales for the entire year, 44% increase. That's for 2020. So the digital penetration has grown 2 or 3 years ahead of schedule just because of what's been going on in the technology that's enabled retailers to shift more to an online presence. So thankfully, with our sales tax and our ability to collect due to the Supreme Court decision and so forth, we have the mechanism in place to capture those receipts. So that's a blessing from that standpoint. We're looking at reaching last year's totals for our online marketplace and retailers receipts probably by next month. And so we'll reach last year's collection total with still 4 months to go in the fiscal year. So I know I'm throwing a lot of statistics out there, but just wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of how our collections are going from that sector and how that is to some extent offsetting some of the declines in other retail sectors. I also would just mention one of the bills that we're following is House Bill 249. And that is a bill that addresses marketplace providers and remote retailers. There was an issue with our conformity to the streamlined sales tax agreement, and we required marketplace retailers to register and have 2 separate sales tax account numbers. That wasn't an onerous requirement, but the streamlined agreement prevents us. It recommends and requires member states to only require a single registration for simplification purposes. We had two registrations required, one for them to report their direct sales and one their indirect sales, so we could just track the numbers. And the statistics I've already given to you, the requirement for that registration has enabled us to track those things. So I just wanted mention that bill, we're going to change that requirement and make it rather than mandatory, voluntary. So we're hopeful that that bill will pass and put us back in conformity with Streamline. And then on the regulation front, I'll just mention briefly, we have filed a regulation mandating electronic filing and electronic payments that would cover sales and use tax and some of our other transactional excise taxes. It's broader than just those taxes, but generally for all the other taxes, it just confirms the requirements and the provisions that are already in place. So we're looking forward to that bill going forward. And really, we look at this as a benefit to the retail community, especially in context of, social distancing and things like that. The ability to file electronically, to make electronic payments, that's a helpful thing. But we found that some businesses won't do that until we give them a little bit of a nudge from a regulatory standpoint. But we'll be working with businesses. There is a waiver provision, so we're going to be very hands-on and working with businesses that have issues to help them to move through this process. So that's kind of where what I wanted to bring up this morning.
Jessica, you want to jump in here?
Sure thing. Good morning. Thanks for having me again. All before, so it's good to be back. Just wanted to touch base since we're entering filing season. Individual income tax will be going live on Friday. That's in line with what the IRS is doing. So Kentucky will begin accepting returns as of Friday for individual income tax. As far as business tax filings, we are actually already live on just about all our forms. So form 720, 740 NP, WH, 725, and the PTE are all live. So those can all be accepted. We've heard back from a few people that aren't able to e-file, and it's possible that your software vendor may actually not be completely approved with the DOR yet. If that's the case, then just hang tight, and once the testing process is over and they're approved by us, that you should be able to file. So the only return that we haven't gone live on is the unitary return, the 720U. But other than that, we're live. I do want to point at our website for a lot of good information on, all the COVID impact on taxes and so forth. We actually just posted a Q&A yesterday afternoon related to the coronavirus related distributions, whether or not Kentucky conformed with that for federal purposes, and Kentucky does. So for federal purposes, you can take out up to $100,000 of coronavirus related distributions, and then you can ratably include those in gross income over 3 years. And so Kentucky does conform to that. So that was a Q&A we just added yesterday. So if you're not familiar with our website, it's an excellent resource, revenue.ky.gov. As soon as you hit our landing screen, there's a big orange box that says COVID-19 tax information. Click on that. And then over on the right side is a frequently asked questions box. Click on that and we have all kinds of links to our positions, many of which came through the KYCPA or some of your all's questions that we've gotten enough of that we posted online. So other than that, that's about all I have. I'll keep it short and sweet this year.
Thank you. Doesn't look like Gary's on. Is he gonna?
He may be on. I have no idea. But
okay.
if somebody has a question, there he is.
We have
Look
a
at
couple.
that. Okay, a couple, just a couple.
Yes. One says recently heard that the IRS may extend the April 15th tax filing deadline if another stimulus package is passed due to a bandwidth issue. The IRS doesn't have enough staff to issue stimulus checks and process the tax returns. If the IRS does extend the tax filing deadline, will Kentucky follow?
This is Gary Morris. I hope you can hear me. Everyone can hear me.
Yes.
The answer is that that's something we'll just have to look at. We haven't even had discussions yet. We'll wait and see what the feds do and what their legal justification is for extending the deadline, and then issue some type of statement about it after that. But a very good question. It's something we're definitely following.
Okay, thanks. Another question, do you anticipate Department of Revenue changing its current position regarding nexus and withholding taxes for remote workers?
That one is still under review. The answer as of today is we haven't changed our position, but we understand it's of great interest to a lot of people, and for many CPAs, that it's a simplicity issue to go back to the worker's place of work as the place for which the withholding occurs. Obviously, there are a lot of questions that have come up from that, and we understand how important that is. But as of right now, we haven't changed our position.
Okay, thanks. Those are the only questions I see right now. Gary, did you have any other update that you wanted to give on anything else?
No, I do appreciate this opportunity and getting to hear the two representatives speak. I got more intel on the legislative session than I've gotten from any other source, so I appreciate that opportunity. We understand and respect what you're trying to do with House Bill 278, and we'll continue to monitor that. We haven't analyzed the committee sub amendment that was passed yesterday yet, but certainly we'll be following that as it goes through the process.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see. So yeah, Ann asked about the PPP forgiveness, which we just addressed. If anyone else has any other questions, please put them in the chat. I know we're coming to the end of our time here. If anyone from Department of Revenue has any closing remarks, you're welcome to make those. But again, we thank you all very much. You are always willing and open to speak at our events, and I think the communication with our members is just great, and having you guys give these updates at everything that we do, and we really appreciate it. I know I send all of you a lot of questions, a lot of emails, and you guys are always great about it. So thank you for that. But I'll let you do any closing remarks if you have any.
Shelby, I'd like to just tell you how much I appreciated the first three speakers. It's always interesting to get their input on things, and they all three sounded very serious and sincere when they said what they said. And I want you to know that when you send questions to us, try to be a little patient, because as you know, I hope you know, we have to go through a process before we can get back to you. And it's not like, how do I put this? It's not like, I better not even say it, but it's different. And I just want you to know that we will get back to you. And I appreciate you allowing us to be here and allowing us to participate in all of your functions. So thank you very much.
Yes, and we appreciate you all too. Always getting back to us, and just the communication. We appreciate that a lot, and having you all here. So, and Kathleen said, Mr. Miller, having retired from Kentucky Revenue Cabinet, I have a respect for what you all do. So there's a nice comment to end your day.
Very nice.
But as
our day's not over yet.
well, yeah, end your time with us. I know you've got much more to do today. Well, as Lisa said in the chat, if we didn't get to your question, I know there were some pretty specific questions on there. I saw one from Irma. Then we will get back to you on those, or you can email me. Again, thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Thank you, Jessica, Richard, Gary, for all that you do. And thanks for everyone that joined the call today. We're glad that we were able to have this for you all again this year, even though it may be virtual. But we appreciate you participating and supporting KYCPA. So thank you all.
Have a great one. Be
Thank
safe.
you.
Stay
Thanks,
healthy.
Shelby.
Have a good rest of your day. Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.